1955, blue and silver. Beautiful car. Sir. I would like to start out this video by thanking all of you modelers out there for taking the time to do all of your videos to show the different processes and techniques and tricks on putting these models together. Without you, this model, my first model, matter of fact, may not have been possible. So thank you very much for all of you that are into the hobby and have that passion to inspire others to do the same thing. So thank you very much. Alright, here's the completed model, and I believe every model should have a story to it, and this model is no different. As you can tell by the stance of it, it's a little down in the back. The leaf springs are probably corroded and dropped a little bit, and apparently the trunk is full of crap that they've put in there because the spare tires happen to be in the back seats. There's no room for that in the trunk. I don't know if you can see the little seat wear on the driver's side over there. We'll spin it around a little bit here, and apparently there's some critters have gotten in here and built a little nest on top of the battery, and some downfall a little bit from some trees or what have you got drug in here on top of the engine, and some corrosion on the hood and the normal places on the fenders. Tires look pretty flat. Something you'd expect to see, I guess. They've been sitting out in a tree for a number of years, and this is pretty much what neglect looks like. Kind of a sad situation for a classic car like this, but they're out there. So that's my story, and I'm at one point in time here, it looked like they might have had a little bit of battery going and couldn't get the engine started, but they did turn on the windshield wipers, and since it has accumulated some more dirt on top of it. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. It's my model, and I can come up with any story I want to, right? The idea is just to have fun and get her done. I'd like to take this time to touch on some methods that I used, tricks that I learned watching you guys' videos, and maybe point out some problems I had putting this together, which might help some of you starting out just like me. First of all, I started out with this model here. 55 Chevy Bel Air by AMT. Not a bad model, I guess, for your first model. Nothing too complicated about it. Okay, basically I used the salt chipping method on most of the body. I did some digging out with a Dremel on the back side of the fenders and such to get the view that they're rotting out and what have you. The colors I used Wicked Colors by Createx. The blue is a Wicked Pearl Blue, and the silver is the Wicked Silver by Vallejo. The inside, I weathered it by mixing about a 50-50 water and white paint, brushed it on and wiped off the excess to give it that aged look. And I think it was Mr. C I may have seen do the worn out seat. Couple problems now to get to that I had. Spark plug wires. What I used was the smallest wire I can find in my arsenal, which is like basically a telephone wire, and I used the red wire. I would not suggest anybody go that route because you just cannot really form it. You know, I drilled the distributor out and I put all 8 wires in there, and try to wrap them around and stick them into the holes by where the cylinders would be, and you just can't get it to work for you. I ended up kind of quick gluing them to the valve covers, and that didn't look very good. So it's a good thing I weathered the engine up. So it's kind of hard to tell I did that, but I would suggest maybe buying the wire that you can get from these companies that are for this, that you can actually form and route the way you want them. That was one problem. On the bottom, they gave you 3 sets of tires with these cars, and the real widest one I wanted to put on the back, and then put the second widest ones on the front. But when I did that, they wouldn't fit in here when you had the body closed. I had a 1/16 of an inch gap on both sides here, and by the time you close that up, I mean, the tire, you could even get the body to go over the tire. A couple of things I did do too is on this part of the wheel, on this part right here, I had to cut them down a little bit. Now you can kind of tell by looking at these here, I could have cut them down a little bit more, but I still don't think that would have afforded me the room for these tires. Another issue I had was I had to drill the inside of these out a little bit for the front to get them to go on. And now on the back, the axle they give you with these things, there was just hardly not enough to stick through both sides. There was just a little nub on both sides, and the wheels are already, the holes were too big for them, so they kind of flopped around like a fish out of water, and I didn't like that. So I actually went out to the shop and got a piece of my own wire and made a longer one. And then too, you run into the situation where they may have drilled these holes out a little big for this axle they give you. So what I did is I took a piece of steel, or actually aluminum foil, and ran you a little bit of crazy glue right on the end. Don't leave a gob of it, just put a little thin coat on there, and then press this axle onto it. And then I always keep handy a little bit of this Instaset, and spray it into a container like this, and I take the toothpick and just touch that Instaset on there, and it'll set that aluminum foil on there, and you wrap her up like so, and then you just unwrap as much as you need for that to get you a strong fit inside of that wheel. I didn't like the idea of the wheels flopping around, because you can go ahead and glue them, and then somebody set it down hard or something, and they snap them loose again too. And I flattened these tires, but you can see the flat part looks like it's on the inside. Well, the reason I did that is because when I initially put these wheels in the tires, it was so distorted on this side that I didn't think that would look good on the outside. So I went ahead and put them together, and kind of wished I had put them on the outside now, but in order to do that, I'd have to break this all free here that I glued together, and I had a booger up here on the top. I had to really put some force on these to push them up into the body and glued them, and use the Instaset on them to set them. So I have no desire to tear this apart, just to turn those wheels around. So we're gonna, lesson learned, you know, you learn as you go, hopefully. And on the bottom here, you can see, if you can see, I got some rust in here around certain areas, used regular rust. What I did was I made my own rust out of steel wool, and then I would mix it with a little bit of Aho wash. I'd mix that up with the rust and then dab it into the places I wanted to dab it. And then later on, I would come along and maybe take some of this Rust-Oleum matte finish, spray it into a container, and then take a stiff brush and kind of set them in place so that they'd stick. And I did the same thing on the rust on the fenders and such too. I use some real rust on the bumpers. So that's something to look out for when you put these together. It's not a bad idea to pre-fit your wheels and everything before you decide you're going to put the body on. Make sure everything's going to come out. I didn't want the wide tires rubbing up on the leaf springs either. That wouldn't have looked very natural either, but like I say, lesson learned. We'll know better next time. Had a little trouble with the interior tub, I call it. When I set it down onto the bottom here, it was kind of flopping around, so I had to take a Dremel and grind a lot of underneath here above this part and underneath the seats in the tub to get it to sit down nice to go together. So there's some things to look out for there when you're doing these models. Just take your time and do the best job you can. But the main thing is have fun doing her. And weathering, I used Vallejo's weathering products pretty much for my weathering colors. The orange brown, got the orange rust and the wash. Now on the windshields and on the tires, I use this DecoArt. It's called Mississippi Mud. Mississippi Mud. It seemed to come out pretty good for coloring, so I kind of like that. But just wanted to point some of this stuff out to you. It might help you with your first build or things to look out for. But there you have it.